You're listening to Procurement 6, the weekly podcast from the team at Art of Procurement that summarizes this week in procurement in just 6 short segments.
Hi there, I'm Philip Heitzen, and today is Friday, April 12th, 2024.
6.
This week's Procurement 6 is brought to you by longtime supporters of Art of Procurement, Fine-Tune. Now, Helen recently had the opportunity to speak with CEO Rich Ham as part of our AOP Introducing series. Since co-founding the company all the way back in 2002, in a basement no less, Rich has overseen the company's growth journey from a small team and a handful of clients to a large network of in-depth category experts and a large roster of enterprises responsible for hundreds of millions in annual spend. To watch the whole interview to learn a little bit more about Fine-Tune, check the link in today's show notes.
5.
AOP recently hosted our annual tech-focused event, Digital Outcomes, and one session in particular led by Heather Murray, an AI trainer and advisor at Beasting Digital and a founder of AI for Non-Techies, seemed to resonate with our audience. In her session, Straight Talk about AI, Heather talked about the potential and some of the pitfalls AI has for procurement and how we should go about developing a strategy for AI adoption. In this clip, we'll hear Heather talking about some of the risks that everyone in procurement should be aware of before they implement a new AI tool into their business processes. Let's have a listen.
I think there's some huge risks legally. I think first one is intellectual property. So if it's with AI, it's trained on data, other people's data. It does not have original thought. So it's getting billions and billions of other pieces of content, mixing them all around, trying to pull out the right things and giving it back to you. So who owns that? Who owns that? And particularly when it comes to kind of generative AI, when we're talking about text being generated or images being generated, there's no clear answer quite yet. There's a lot of court cases in the pipeline trying to get through and trying to create an answer.
Interesting.
But intellectual property is definitely a huge one because, if you create something, if you create a contract, do you truly, something completely using AI, do you completely own that or not? I think data protection is another big one too. So few people know when you start to use these off-the-shelf products, a lot of these companies we've never heard of before as well. So they've just come to market really quickly. Some of them are just people sat in their offices and in their home office. Absolutely. And they've just built this product and they've gone, okay, let's get this to market, and it's out and everybody's really excited. And they've, I spoke to HeyGem, one of the biggest AI tools recently, and they started off really small and they snowballed really quickly, and they're thought, oh my God. So these tools have come to market very quickly. So can we trust them with our data? So they might say your data is private, is it? And also being aware that actually with a lot of tools, I say ChatGPT, I keep on using an example, but it is a good all-rounder.
It's easy to get lured by the latest shiny new object in AI, but just because the technology seems to be evolving at a rapid pace, it doesn't mean that procurement can't take the time to do their due diligence before diving in. To listen to the full session, which is now a standalone podcast episode, just go to artofprocurement.com/podcast or search for Art of Procurement and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts.
4.
On February 28th, 2024, New York Attorney General Letitia James charged JBS with civil fraud. Now, according to her office, the largest meat producer in the world is greenwashing. Well, what's her proof? She says that they've not been able to establish a baseline for their current carbon dioxide emissions, that it will be too operationally damaging or expensive to achieve their goal of net zero emissions by 2040. But while JBS is facing a lawsuit for not measuring their Scope 3 emissions, the SEC is struggling to establish a climate risk disclosure rule. They announced the rule, which would not take effect until 2026, on March the 6th, and then withdrew it on April the 5th because of the legal challenges it faced. Now, if companies are going to be held accountable for their environmental impact, we're going to need fair, data-driven standards. And in this week's episode of Art of Supply, Kelly Barner looks at the case that the state of New York will have to prove, that JBS will have to defend against, and which could have a chilling effect on all large corporations who will have to innovate in order to achieve their sustainability vision. To hear the full episode, check out the link in today's show notes or go to artofprocurement.com/supply.
This is Procurement 6 from Art of Procurement. To get notified every time an episode is published, go to artofprocurement.com/subscribe. 3.
We're currently piloting a new email subscription, and one of the things that we're focusing on is bringing you market insights and intelligence from our friends at Procurement IQ. Now, this week, we took a look at the telemarketing services category. 60% of the cost of telemarketing services is the direct labour cost of employing agents, with a typical average profit margin of just under 6%. Now, while labour costs have put upward pressure on the total cost over the past few years, these are forecasted to moderate significantly, with only a 0.75% annual increase expected between now and 2028. Now, the biggest difference in total cost is between those who use offshore labour in countries like the Philippines. The hourly rate of a US-based agent in Mississippi is actually 50% less than the hourly rate of a US-based agent in San Jose, California, as an example. Picking the right location or negotiating based on the location of the agents, that definitely matters. In addition, while demand remains flat, an increase in the number of qualified providers is bringing more competition to the market. And for these reasons, the balance of power has shifted to the buyer when buying telemarketing services in 2024, and this is expected to continue further into 2025. The upshot, now's a good time to be in the market, but if you can wait, conditions are likely to improve even further for buyers in 2025.
2.
Two US Senators, Gary Peters, a Democrat from Michigan, and Ted Cruz, a Republican from Texas, introduced a new bill, the Federal Improvement in Technology Procurement Act, that they say would make procurement easier for both federal acquisition staff and contractors buying and selling technology. Highlights of the bill include allowing the prepayment of certain cloud services, increasing the threshold from $250,000 to $500,000 under which more simplified procurement process rules can apply, guidance that expands how contracting entities consider an offer as non-governmental work as referenceable, opening access to more companies that have not previously contracted with the federal government, providing requirements for government-funded training and buyers for topics like AI. And there's a number of different things in that bill. Now, the bill was introduced on March 22nd and is now being referred to the Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs for further consideration.
1.
On April 16th, I get to talk about one of my favourite subjects, procurement services and procurement outsourcing, with Joe Payne and Anthony Mignogna at CoreCentric. Now, in my opinion, the procurement operating model future is going to rely much more on external partners, particularly in the category management and sourcing part of the procurement process. We'll chat about some common misperceptions about procurement outsourcing, changing operating models, and how to measure impact. We've also got some war stories to tell you to help avoid common but sometimes hidden pitfalls. So join us in real time or register now to get access to the recording as soon as the session is completed by clicking the link in today's show notes.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back next Friday at 6 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time. If you've enjoyed this pod, help us grow and tell your peers to search for Procurement 6 wherever they get their podcasts.